4 days with all the elements thrown at the riders. Rains on day 1, winds on day 2, and followed up by 2 nasty uphill finishes. With only seconds separating the top 3 men, Bradley Wiggins, Levi Leipheimer and TJ Van Garderen, Stage 5 throws a curveball with the toughest mountaintop finish yet to the airport above Mende. Paris-Nice continues next on the NBC Sports Network. Welcome to the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra. As we look down on the city of Mende, it's no stranger to Paris-Nice, it's no stranger to the Tour de France, and the airport above the city today will host the finish of Stage 5 after 111 miles from Onet-le-Château into Mende. Hi everybody, I'm Paul Sherwin. Alongside me is Bob Roll. And Bob, as we start to think about this stage today, it's a very important stage with a crucial mountaintop finish.
Absolutely. Stage 5 promised to bring us a non-stop Lollapalooza of climbing and a very tough Category 1 climb to the finish in Mende. This is the Queen stage. If you're an overall contender, you must come out and play today.
You certainly have to, especially with this very difficult climb up to the airport. It's only 2 kilometers long, but it could have an effect on the overall standings at the end of today's stage. But going into the stage after Stage 4, Bradley Wiggins still looking like a very solid leader in the yellow jersey at the top of the overall standings, but only 6 seconds ahead of Levi Leipheimer. TJ Van Garderen, we haven't seen him for 2 days, but he's still there in 3rd place overall, looking for 11 seconds. Sylvain Chavanel, the Frenchman, in 4th, could be very dangerous at 14. A little bit further back, we're talking about Alejandro Valverde in 7th place, looking for 20 seconds. He, too, is a man who could be dangerous on this mountaintop finish today. Bob, it looks like a standard stage as we move away from Onet-le-Château, but it's all about the second half of the course this afternoon.
There are 3 Category 1 climbs out on the race course that should shake up the peloton and make it very tough for anybody in this bike race to defend their position in the overall standings. All kinds of climbing out on the race course. Category 1, but this is the important part at the end of the map there. The Category 1 to the finish in Mende. That's going to be a tough test.
Well, they call it the Monte Laurent Jalabert, the climb of Laurent Jalabert, because he won back in 1994 and went on to win the green jersey in the Tour de France that year. And I tell you what, this climb has always had a lot to say about the result of the Tour de France or Paris-Nice. So coming up next, Stage 5. The Epic Cycle, presented by Michelob Ultra on NBC Sports Network, is brought to you by Michelob Ultra, the superior light beer, perfectly balanced for the ultra life. And by Villiers Trestina, 106 years of bicycle-making tradition and innovation, and sponsor of Team Lamprey ISD. And by Competitive Cyclist. For a chance to win the $8,000 Orbea bike, go to competitivecyclist.com/win Orbea. Looking down on the Cathedral of Notre-Dame-de-Monde in the very heart of the city, this is the 4-man leading breakaway that got clear after just 5 kilometers of the stage this afternoon. At one time, they'd built themselves a massive advantage of over 7 minutes, but it's now come down to 5 minutes and 15 seconds with 50 kilometers or 31 miles to go. Making up that 4-man breakaway, Simon Clark. On the front, Frédéric Verkeulen is in there as well, and he rides for Vacances Soleil. Yukiya Arashiro of Urupcar, he's the rider we're looking at immediately. And the one rider making up the 4 is David Lelay from Sojosun. Bob, a very, very cold day here this afternoon.
Arm warmers and long finger gloves and hats under the helmets are the order of the day. A little bit hard on the body to race in these freezing cold conditions. Tough on the muscles to keep themselves constantly warmed up throughout the day's proceeding when you have a wind chill factor of just around 15 degrees Fahrenheit on today's stage.
Yeah, on a number of occasions we're going over the 1,000 meters in altitude. That's 3,000 feet as we now head ourselves into this very beautiful part of France. These are the gorges of the Tarn. And Bob, this is a great place to ride through. We have a quick look down as the main field is winding its way through these magnificent gorges. And they're nicknamed, by the way, the Cirque de Tarn, if you come down into this part of the world. The weather this afternoon, well, a very chilly 37 degrees Fahrenheit, and the winds, that is going to be a factor on the running towards a finish, Bob. 22 miles an hour, and of course partly cloudy at the finishing line, but that 22 mile an hour wind, I think, will have a serious effect on the chill factor.
Watching the Movistar
look at this, Bob, look at this. This is a crash. This is a rider from AG2R has gone down here, and he looks as if he's really seriously banged up.
Looks to be like Biel Kadri, the AG2R rider, bleeding from his head there. Helmet off, sunglasses, the bike on the side of the road there. Got to be careful for the cars that are coming up. They don't know this until they get right up on the scene. And Biel Kadri in absolute agony on the side of the road.
Well, you might have heard the siren there. They're actually calling up the ambulance for Biel Kadri, so I think he'll be making his way to hospital for a little bit of a checkup. First look at the yellow jersey here. Important on a cold day, Bob, to keep yourself topped up with energy. You might just have noticed the yellow jersey there on the shoulders of Bradley Wiggins, keeping himself topped up with the energy by eating all of the time. The old cyclist's expression is eat a little bit and very often.
Eat a little bit often, and to avoid the hunger knock that can absolutely ruin your day out on the open road. That looks to be like Danny Pate from the Sky Team, American rider on the British Sky Team, teammate of Bradley Wiggins. And Danny Pate, hats off to Danny Pate throughout the week's racing. He's always been near the front, taking care of his leader and the race leader, Bradley Wiggins.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned Danny Pate. He actually had a fairly easy day yesterday because Team Sky didn't have to do a lot of the pacemaking, but Danny Pate's heart rate and wattage went right up as he was trying to place Bradley Wiggins to the front end of the main field on the running towards the finish line. In fact, for around about 6 minutes, his wattage was turning at around about 400 watts an average.
400 watts on average for any amount of time is very tough to do. Carlos Barredo is the rider, Spaniard on the Rabobank squad. The race referee asking him to let go of the car, even though Barredo it looked to be getting a mechanical assistance from the mechanic that sits in the back seat of the car. But you can hold on for a little while, but if you hold on for too long, the race referee will come up and say, hey, let go of that. You got to do it on your own.
No, you certainly do. What a magnificent backdrop for a bike race here this afternoon. But Mende, no stranger at all to Paris-Nice in the past. We've had mountaintop finishes here. The last time it came in 2010, the winner, in fact, was Alberto Contador. And he went on to lose that Paris-Nice, actually, by the way, because he was overtaken on the penultimate stage by Luis Leon Sanchez.
Well, it was a spectacular ride that Contador put in on the climb to Mende, the Monte Laurent Jalabert. And he might have expended too much energy getting that big lead that he did and winning solo on Mende, because the next day he fell apart, did get a hunger knock that we talk about so often. A lot of times we talk about the bonk or the hunger knock in the early season when you're still becoming accustomed to the physiological requirements of these long bike races. After a long off season, sometimes you get the bonk and you lose a lot of time, and that's what happened to Contador in 2009 when Luis Leon Sanchez eventually won Paris-Nice.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing, some riders lost big time on that summit finish to Mende as well, because Chavanel lost 34 seconds and Levi Leipheimer, Bob, actually lost 59 seconds to Contador on that mountaintop finish.
Well, if you take Contador out of the equation, it was Alejandro Valverde that came out the best in the riders that are currently in this year's Paris-Nice, but Levi Leipheimer and Sylvain Chavanel were right up there on that stage that was won by Contador.
Well, the four riders who are the musketeers of today's stage 5 of this year's Paris-Nice are still in the lead, and it's now starting to come inside of the 5-minute mark for the first time in an awful long time this afternoon. 48 kilometers left to go to the finish, and that is around about 30 miles. Tomorrow, the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra continues with Stage 6 of Paris-Nice. Early ascents will give the climbers an opportunity to strike hard right from the start. Tomorrow, 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the NBC Sports Network. Looking here at the leading group of 4, Bob, the gap really now starting to come down very dramatically, and you can see this is a very tough run into Mende, and the race is already splitting up.
This is what's called the gruppetto. These are the sprinters that try to survive in the mountains to get to the flatter roads in international cycling. They will cooperate with each other all the way to the finish line. You can see Greg Abole in there, Tor Hushov. I wouldn't be surprised if Tom Bonen himself wasn't in that group also.
Well, this is 36 kilometers ago. It's a very difficult first category climb, the Côte de l'Estrade. At 146 kilometers is the summit. There you can see the leader of the King of the Mountains classification just over on the right-hand side in that polka dot jersey. He can't do anything at all, Bob, to hold off these attacks.
Well, there's Kevin Seeldraers, the rider from Astana, and Lawrence Tendam going for some King of the Mountain points. This is a Category 1 climb. Lots of points for offer. 4 men in the front group, so still some points for the peloton. And Kevin Seeldraers, a very handy climber from Belgium, just in front of the leading pack, as well as Lawrence Tendam. We might remember him from last year's Tour de France. A face plant, bleeding from the mouth. He was able to finish the stage. A very tough rider from Holland and the Rabobank squad.
Well, just sitting on the back there, number 42, that's Simon Clark, a young rider on the new Green Edge Australian cycling team. And the pacemaking being done by Frederik Verkelen here. I think Lawrence Tendam there, Bob, is actually trying to use this as a launch pad to get himself across to that leading group of riders. It's a long, hard first category climb, this. And, of course, Tendam looking for a little bit of respite because Team Rabobank have not had a lot to talk about so far in this year's Paris-Nice. They've missed out on all occasions.
It was Luis Leon Sanchez hoping for a stage win yesterday. Did not come up with the goods. That was Johnny Meersman, but Rabobank, no results so far. And the whole team missed out on that split on way back on stage number 2. It seems like a lifetime ago at this point, but Rabobank will have to be aggressive throughout the rest of Paris-Nice if they're going to be able to win a stage.
Well, as we stare here into the eyes of Frederik Verkelen, I can tell you that Sandy Cassar, the French leader of FDJ, has actually pulled out of the bike race. We're getting into a very lumpy bit of territory here. 34 kilometers to go to the finish. That's just about 20 miles of racing, and the gap 2 minutes and 15 seconds. Looking at these guys, Bob, you can see the body language is now starting to tell us, at least, that they are starting to weaken.
And the gap is coming way down. That is Simon Clark, the young rider on the Green Edge squad. Some very impressive physiological parameters for that young cyclist. A resting heart rate 38 beats per minute, maximum heart rate somewhat modest 195 beats per minute, but most importantly his aerobic threshold has been measured at 179 beats per minute. That's over 92% of his maximum. A very efficient rider with a lot of God-given talent.
Looking here at the green jersey, very firmly now on the shoulders of Alejandro Valverde. For many people, Bob, he is a big favorite for today's stage. Last time that Paris-Nice came here to Mende and the finish on the aerodrome just above the city, he was in fact in second position just behind Alberto Contador. So I would think that makes him a big race favorite for today.
Most certainly. He's on good form as well, having already won a stage in Paris-Nice a little bit earlier. He's also put his teammates on the front of the bike race to keep that breakaway within striking distance.
Yeah, that rider on the front is Jose Ivan Gutierrez, a former champion of Spain in the time trial and in the road race. Obviously, Movistar have got a big hope this afternoon for Alejandro Valverde. We could see the first big changing in the overall classification since the very first road stage.
Most certainly, the finishing climb is hard enough. These two riders broke away a little bit earlier. Lawrence Tendam, Kevin Seeldraers haven't been able to chip away very much after initially closing down some time to the breakaway. That gap has gone out now to 2 minutes and 25 seconds. And if they turned around and looked right behind them, they'd see the peloton hot on their heels being led by the Movistar squad of Alejandro Valverde.
This is a very tough climb. You see the damage that's going on at the back end of the main field here this afternoon. Riders slipping back. Remy de Gregorio going back there in the red jersey of Team Cofidis. Now, that's a bit of a surprise because a couple of years ago, Bob, he won a stage of Paris-Nice on a circuit like this one.
Very sketchy, rainy day where he won his stage in Paris-Nice last year, sliding all over the machine, almost crashed a couple of times in the last couple of kilometers, and was able to keep it upright and win a stage. That was a great result for Remy de Gregorio. Last year, however, he was on the Astana squad. He's come over to the French team, Cofidis.
Well, just having a look here, the summit is in 1 kilometer. So if we see this young man on the right-hand side, Frederik Verkelen, if he gets himself maximum points again, Bob, he will now become the new leader of that King of the Mountains classification, the classification which was led at the start of the day by the Spanish rider on Team Cofidis, Luis Angel Mate.
Mate will be looking for some points, perhaps, for that King of the Mountain jersey from the peloton. Category 1 climb containing a lot of points. Verkelen has gotten maximum points throughout the stage. He pulls himself right up into contention for the polka dot jersey. A lot of points in the King of the Mountain jersey up for grabs.
Well, this is a first category climb, and it carries some heavy points. 10 points for the first rider to summit this climb. And so far on the day, Verkelen has been unbeatable at the top of the first 3 climbs we've been over. He's amassed himself a massive 18 points on today. With the 1 point that he had yesterday, that gives him a total of 19. Just 1 point behind Luis Angel Mate. And Mate will be trying to get himself some points if he can from the main field behind, I would expect.
A couple of other hard climbs still to come in the stage, so all of this action could become academic when the peloton, if they do catch this breakaway, start to race for the more King of the Mountain points out on the race course.
I don't know if you could just hear that wind there, Bob. You can see the clouds are fairly high in the sky, and we're now 500 meters. I would say that Verkelen is in an ideal position here to launch that little move. You can see he is the rider wearing number 107. He's out of the saddle. He's looking at the other riders to see if any of those are going to make a move first. And in fact, David Lelay, who's just sitting at the back of the group there, and he rides for Team Sojosun, he's in fact finished second on all 3 occasions to the big Flying Dutchman.
Movistar still on the front of the peloton. Vacan Soleil moving into position there. They've had a really good Paris-Nice so far. A stage win from Gustav Larsson on the stage #1 time trial. Also Thomas de Gent in the King of the Mountains jersey. And they've been very active throughout Paris-Nice. A heads-up squad. They were fighting for a position in the Tour de France last year. They were able to secure that and made their Tour de France debut in 2011.
Well, this first category climb, Bob, is having a serious effect on the advantage of these riders. It's now down to 2 minutes and 5 seconds. And 1 minute 30 seconds behind them are the 2 chasers. Let's not forget, Laurens ten Dam is trying to use this first category climb here this afternoon as a launch pad, because once we go over the top of this, we've got a sketchy little descent for him to try and make contact with the leaders.
If Frederick Verkelen can stay in this front group, and the 2 riders that are chasing Laurens ten Dam and Kevin Stildraer stay off the front of the group, that will take the points away from Mate and give Verkelen an advantage, and he will be the undisputed leader in the King of the Mountain competition if it stays the same, the status quo at the moment.
Well, nobody's challenging him at all as he goes over the top there in first place. 10 more points in the pocket for him. Second place to David Lelay. And if you just hear there, that wind, Rob, it really is rattling the riders.
It's been gusting up to 30 miles per hour at the finish line on today's stage at the Aerodrome, or the airport of Mende, a very small little airstrip. And I would not want to be landing a plane when there's 30-mile-an-hour winds up there.
Now, sitting in second position there is Thomas de Gent. He was the early leader of the King of the Mountains classification. I think he's riding just sensibly, Bob, just looking to see what's happening, if there's a possibility that he might be able to pick a couple of points up. But as you said quite correctly, all of the points now have disappeared, because just off the front of this group is Laurens ten Dam and Kevin Stildraer, who now rides for Team Astana, having spent the early part of his career riding for Team Quickstep.
Interesting story about Kevin Stildraer. No place left for him after the big merger between Quickstep and Omega. He found a new team, however, and some maybe greener pastures on the Astana squad. A very talented climber. He was actually 5th in the Tour of Georgia for the American fans out there way back in 2007. Promises a lot. Has yet to really confirm his talent, but perhaps on the Astana squad, he'll be able to get some good results.
I think I might have thrown you a curveball there, Bob. In fact, there is 1 point left available for 7th place over the top on a first category climb. As we can see, you notice all of the riders being very attentive here this afternoon. And just as a quick reminder, we've seen Bradley Wiggins in his yellow jersey. Now this is Thomas de Gent.
Being chased by Luis Mate.
Yeah, well, Mate can't even get his wheel there. This acceleration, and Thomas de Gent has decided any point is valuable if you're trying to win the King of the Mountains classification. Let's not forget it's his teammate, Bob, at the end of the day, who will be in the lead in that classification.
Very, very clever tactics by Vacan Soleil. If Mate could have gotten that single point, he might have been able to match the point total that Verkelen have at the end of the day. But it was Thomas de Gent taking that point away from Luis Mate. Great riding by Vacan Soleil.
Well, the gap at inside of 2 minutes now. The 4 leaders are heading down towards the valleys, and we'll take a break. More from Paris-Nice next. Welcome back to the Epic Cycle presented by Michelob Ultra. As we look at the main field here, you can see Movistar doing a lot of pacemaking, but the pale blue jerseys there are the teammates of Tom Bonen, who's already had a stage victory so far this week for Omega Pharma Quickstep. And they've also got 2 riders in the top 4 in the overall standings. Levi Leipheimer in 2nd, Sylvain Chavanel in 4th. So that's why today they are our Road ID athlete profile.
It's Boonen all the way to the line. Tom Boonen takes his 19th stage win. Velits can see his prey in front of him. He may well take the red by a very slender advantage.
Lighting it up and going early. That was fine work by Omega Pharma.
I was really surprised that, everybody is so open for us and so friendly. So it was right from the beginning a really good atmosphere here. They are happy that we come to the old team, and we are happy that we found a good new team. So I think it's a really good mix, and we all are really motivated. For sure it takes some time to get to know each other, but it will come automatically that you find some new friends here in the team. So I'm really open for that, and have a really good feeling for the future in the team.
I don't think it's a big surprise or something. The team was strong, and it was always strong, but with the more and more coming victories, everybody's more and more confident, and the team is working really well together, and that's why we're successful.
I think we also can be strong in the sprints, but for sure at the moment it looks like that we are a really strong team for the stage races, and now we just have to find a good strategy to say, okay, who's the captain, who's the helper. Sometimes it's also a problem when we have too strong guys.
Oh, it's going to be a challenge, of course. The Belgian team is, of course, got all the focus on the classics in the past. Now we have Leipheimer, Willits brothers, and a few more. And I think a good team, they have to be able to be good in the classics and in the Grand Tours for the GC.
I don't think it's going to be a problem to find a leader in the team. It's not going to be that case that everyone's going to have the best form in the same moment.
The team is really strong, had a lot of potential for the future. And I think I also have a chance to build up a really great team. So I'm really happy now to be here with Omega Pharma Quickstep.
So that's why we've picked Omega Pharma Quickstep as our Road ID athlete profile for today. I have to say, Bob, Omega Pharma Lotte, they took Quickstep, did an incredible job during the winter months. We saw one or two teams disappearing. HTC were folding after being such a successful squad, and bringing together of a couple of teams like the riders from Omega Pharma Lotto last year into the Quickstep squad. It really has created what I would call a mega team.
A mega team, most certainly, and they have been the dominant team in international cycling so far this year. 21 wins already on the season, and a stage win in Paris-Nice with Tom Boonen on stage number 2.
Well, I mentioned the win, Bob. This is a bit sketchy there, because in that white jersey, that's the leader of the Best Young Rider competition. And, of course, I don't think TJ Van Garderen would like to be in a position like that.
This is not the ideal position to be in. Once the crosswinds start to blow, we saw what they did on stage number 2. But luckily, Brent Bookwalter coming up to assist TJ Van Garderen get back in this front echelon. You do not want to be caught out behind you. You can see TJ just getting onto the back with the help of his teammate. Great riding by Brent Bookwalter.
Pacing him back into the main field. A little bit of slowing now as they get into the forested area, but I think the alarm bells were starting to ring. Obviously, Bob, you can see Team Movistar are super motivated here this afternoon. They know that the last time that Paris-Nice came here, Alberto Contador was the winner, yes, but second on that stage was Alejandro Valverde. And again, it's a superb type of finish for the Spaniard.
Perfect finish for Alejandro Valverde, a great climber. He also has a solid sprint at the end of long, hard stages over here in Europe. He's been very successful. Also, he still has a little bit to prove. He's coming back from a suspension. He was disqualified from the sport for 2 years. He was under suspension for about half of a year, 6 months or so. So he did do 14 months out of competition. He's come back early this season, immediately tasting blood at the Tour Down Under in January, and already a stage winner of Paris-Nice.
Well, there he is, keeping himself nice and topped up with energy this afternoon, because he knows this is going to be a very crucial stage. The 4 leaders, by the way, let's not forget, they still lead this race by 1 minute and 50 seconds, but Alejandro Valverde is thinking about victory today. Well, we're in the very heart of France. On the other side of the Alps is Tirreno Adriatico taking place, and watch this sprint victory here by Mark Cavendish, the champion of the world on Team Sky. The man leading out to the line there, in fact, was Tyler Farrar, the American rider, when all of a sudden, when Mark Cavendish wants to win, Bob, he can do it.
Stage winner, Mark Cavendish. Overall leader, Matt Goss. If you don't speak English, you might not win a stage in Tirreno or lead the race. It does show you, though, how international our sport is.
And don't forget, you can watch Tirreno Adriatico every day on Universal Sports at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Looking at the four leaders now, their gap coming down to 1 minute and 45 seconds, starting to raise up on the horizon. The next climb of the day will be the Côte de Chabritz, and that's a second category climb. And of course, Bob, let's not forget the final climb of the day, the Monte Laurent Jalabert, as they call it, the climb to the aerodrome above the city of Mende. Now, the Tour de France has been here in 2010, and Paris-Nice came here in 2010, but in the Tour de France, the time gaps were not as big as they were in the start of the year.
Start of the year, all the riders not at the top of their game, generally speaking. So you see huge differences between the performance that riders are capable of. And once we get to the Tour de France later on in the summer, some of the toughest stages from the spring almost have no gaps in the overall standing. So it leads me to believe that riders, when they come to the Tour de France, everybody is at the very height of their powers and trying to win. That is the race that defines cycling, the Tour de France.
Just to try and put it to perspective a little bit how difficult today's stage is, after the first 2 hours of racing, the average speed was 41 kilometers an hour, or 26 miles an hour average. But in the third hour of racing, Bob, the average speed of the breakaway was only 18 miles an hour. That's a real indicator, isn't it?
Of how mountainous this stage race is. Yes, absolutely. Lots of climbs early on, not a high average speed. And then, of course, once you get into the meat of this stage, the Queen stage of Paris-Nice, you have nothing but climbs and twisting serpentine descent. And you can see that right here. Beautiful shot of the roads of Paris-Nice on stage number 5.
So it's Movistar seem to be very, very keen on today's stage. It's certainly right up their street with a climb up to the finishing line. We did start to talk earlier. We've seen the yellow jersey on the shoulders of Bradley Wiggins. The green jersey is on the shoulders of Alejandro Valverde. That's for the most consistent rider so far. The polka dot at the start of the day was on the Spanish rider Luis Angel Mate's shoulders. And of course, we've just caught a very nasty glimpse of TJ Van Garderen. Bob, is that an indicator when you see a rider of TJ Van Garderen's position riding at the back end of the peloton in a crosswind?
Well, I think he was in probably pretty decent position on the climb, slipped back just a little bit, maybe not with the experience to recognize that the crosswinds that have been blowing throughout the day would have more of an effect over the top of that climb. On stage number 2, he was very attentive right in that first group. This stage is a little bit different. We have just as windy conditions, but as you can see, they're in the valleys and on the climbs, and in that situation, the wind not quite as dramatic. So TJ, maybe just one little lapse of concentration filtering to the back of the front group, then of course he almost got gapped. But thankfully, Brent Bookwalter, the other American on the BMC squad, still in the bike race after the loss of Taylor Phinney. There's still 2 Americans on BMC, and both of them right in the front of the race. Great riding by Brent Bookwalter to get TJ Van Garderen back in the front group.
Well, the river we're just crossing here, by the way, is the River Tarn. And the Tarn is the river that winds its way through these gorges, the Tarn Gorges, in the very, very pretty part of France known as the region of the Cevennes. It is, in fact, a national park, and it's 5,000 square kilometers. I'm not sure what that is in miles, but a little bit less.
It's a gigantic park.
It certainly is. It really is a windy technical descent here. And all of this time, the race is being kept under the pressure of Team Movistar. I think they're feeling very, very confident with their situation here this afternoon. I do believe that if Alejandro Valverde, Bob, wants to win Paris-Nice this year, he's got to get himself a little bit more time advantage over the likes of Levi Leipheimer and Sylvain Chavanel, because he's not a great individual time trialist.
Well, the stage finish does carry a 10-second time bonus for the winner. If Bradley Wiggins, not quite the sprinter that Alejandro Valverde is, does not get those maximum points, Valverde starting the day 20 seconds behind Wiggins, even if they finished at the same time and Wiggins didn't get any of the other time bonuses, that would mean that Valverde would close that gap down by 10 seconds, and that could prove critical in the overall standings. This race might go down to a few seconds at the end on Sunday, way down in Nice at the finish of Paris-Nice.
Well, look at the damage that is being done here by Team Movistar of Spain, the team of Alejandro Valverde. You've said it a number of times, Bob, success breeds success, but it also raises the morale of the troop. Those guys riding for Movistar, they're on the crest of a wave now because they believe in their leader.
They do absolutely believe in Alejandro Valverde, looking for a win in Paris-Nice, and that would be a great feather in his cap. He's won almost all the stage races in the spring, except for this one.
Yep, except for this one. He would certainly like to win it. Those are the leaders of 4 men who are still looking at the lead in this race of 1 minute and 35 seconds. They will continue on their road down towards Mende before the final climb of the day to the airstrip. A very nice shot here of Alejandro Valverde in the green jersey. Now, we talk often about the yellow jerseys. That's for the rider who is at the best place on time, who has the shortest aggregate time into the bike race. Well, the man who is the most consistent in the stage finishes gets himself points, and Alejandro Valverde has been the most consistent finisher in the top 10 so far. That's why he leads that green jersey points competition for the moment. However, Bob, I have a funny feeling he'd like to swap green for yellow at the end of today.
Well, ideally, you would swap green for yellow at the end of today's stage if you are Alejandro Valverde. If you're Bradley Wiggins, however, I think you want to keep the yellow jersey on your shoulders. And in fact, talking with Sean Yates a little bit earlier today, he said that Team Sky is going to do everything in their power to keep Bradley in yellow. They will not relinquish that jersey without a fight. So Alejandro Valverde is going to have to do something extra exceptionally special on today's stage to wrestle that jersey away from Bradley Wiggins.
Yeah, Sean Yates, former wearer of the yellow jersey himself at the Tour de France and the team manager for Sky Pro Cycling, and a very good tactician out on the open road. And it's very good of him to let us into his car on occasions to give us some insight into how they are talking. I think he might have thrown us a couple of curveballs, though, for Bob, because he did mention that he wasn't really keen on defending the jersey all the way down to the end. But once you've got the lead in a race like this, you don't want to relinquish it too easily.
No, you most certainly do not. You want to cling to that yellow jersey to give the wearer the wings that we talk about in all these international stage races. Sean Yates, so far, also the manager of Team Sky, like you said, having an ideal stage. They controlled the breakaway, kept it around 6 minutes for the first 90 Ks, and they knew that there was a rider, that's David Lelay, just 3.5 minutes behind the race leader, Bradley Wiggins. They kept it close, and Movistar took over at that point, and they've been doing all the work since. So Sky has been able to sit back a little bit, keep Bradley Wiggins out of trouble, and haven't really had to do as much work as you would normally expect on such a difficult stage.
Well, Bob, we were talking about Alejandro Valverde, the rider in the green jersey, as the leader of that points classification. He's a man looking to do something on today's stage, but looking at the bleu, blanc, rouge, the red, white and blue there, Sylvain Chavanel has always ridden extremely well on the finish here in Mende, whether it's been at Paris-Nice or whether it's been at the Tour de France, when the Tour de France came here in 2010. In fact, he rode almost exactly the same time as Bradley Wiggins in 2010. All of those riders losing about 30 seconds to Rodriguez and, of course, to Alberto Contador.
That in the green and blue is Ivan Basso hovering around the back of the peloton. Not the ideal place to be in any stage race.
No, as Basso rides at the back end of the main field, a lot of riders being very attentive at the front. These pale blue jerseys are Omega Pharma Quick-Step. The second place rider there, Levi Leipheimer, he knows this finish very well. He starts the day in second place overall, just looking for 6 seconds. A little bit further behind him is his own teammate, Sylvain Chavanel, in fourth place. He's looking for 14 seconds. And Radio Shack also starting to move up to the front. You can see at the back of that line of the black jerseys was Frank Schleck, but they would probably be looking after their man today, this afternoon. I would expect that to be Maxime Montfort. He too, 5th place overall, and he's looking for 18 seconds.
Let's not forget about Andreas Kloden. He had a great stage yesterday. Kloden riding himself into good form.
Well, the last time this race finished at the top of Mende in Paris-Nice, it was on stage 4 on that occasion. Contador was the winner, but the riders who are in the race today, Alejandro Valverde was the best of the rest. Thomas Voeckler was 5th at 20 seconds. Kuhnego was 6th at 21 seconds. Sylvain Chavanel and Levi Leipheimer were the big losers on that occasion. And in fact, Levi Leipheimer lost himself 59 seconds on Alberto Contador in the last 2 kilometers of climbing.
And 49 seconds to Alejandro Valverde. He will not want to let that happen again today if he wants to stay in contention here at Paris-Nice. Valverde on very good form once again in Paris-Nice. That was 2 years ago. This day might be a little bit different. We'll see.
Well, we're looking at the 4 leaders, and I'd almost forgotten, Bob, there are 2 riders still halfway across the gap. Just as a reminder, it is Laurens ten Dam and Kevin Seeldereyers, and they are now just about 30 seconds of this leading group of 4 riders. Now, if they make the connection with these 4, that could change the face of the run-in towards the finishing line in Mende. As we look there, you can see the massive Cevennes, and on the top of that hill there is the climb of the airstrip of Mende, and that's where I think we're going to see this race, and the overall standings gets turned upside down. And next up will be the Côte de Chabris. Could be a rather nasty little appetizer for the final climb of the day. Well, you can't beat that, can you, Bob? A little bit of footy, the round ball, get it out there, as these riders now are thinking about how they're going to unfold and come into the grandstand, because their grandstand is the small town of Barjac. And that, as everybody knows, is the start of the climb of the Côte de Chabris, the summit of which is 170 kilometers into the race. And that's only 8 kilometers or 5 miles left to go to the finish.
Hot footing it to the finish line. Our 4 riders in the breakaway. Young Simon Clark, the man from the Green Edge squad, successful already this season, winning the Tour Down Under with their leader, Simon Gerrans, who almost won a stage just behind Alejandro Valverde on the Lac de Vassivier climb. But Simon Clark finding the breakaway now and having a good little run at the finish line. However, I don't think that this group is going to stay away. 2 hard climbs to go, and a Category 2 now. There it is, staring at the face of the riders.
Well, we're all in the same town now of Barjac, as these riders now, you can see the front end of the peloton really starting to stretch it out. I think Team Sky have had a fairly good day this afternoon, Bob, because they've had Alejandro Valverde's Movistar team doing the majority of the pacemaking. A good day for guys like Danny Pate, the American rider on Sky Pro Cycling, to have a day off.
Well, if it were to be that Bradley Wiggins kept the jersey on today's stage and they didn't have to do all of this work that's being done by Movistar, theoretically in the next couple of days, they would be just that much fresher. If Wiggins keeps the yellow jersey and keeps himself into contention, that is a good turn of events for Team Sky.
Well, Bob, we're talking about this climb. The climb is around about 2 kilometers in length. Its average gradient is 6%. These riders are going to survive, and I would have to say that Frederik Verkelen must be feeling quite comfortable with the way and the lead that he's established today in the King of the Mountains classification. So tonight, he should walk away with the polka dot jersey on his shoulders.
If he gets maximum points on this climb and the rider Luis Mate gets no points on the last Category 1, well, then, of course, it would be Frederik Verkelen who would inherit that polka dot King of the Mountain jersey at the end of today's stage.
Well, 12.5 kilometers to go to the finish. That's around about 8 miles of racing, 1 minute and 10 seconds. You just see the face there of Bradley Wiggins, calm and concentrated in the yellow jersey. He's always got a couple of Sky riders around him, hasn't he, Bob? That's good for the morale, but it's also, in case he has a mechanical incident, sometimes it's a lot quicker to take a wheel from a teammate and swap it into your own bike.
Absolutely correct. Getting a wheel from your teammate, as long as they're pretty good at it, is a much better idea than waiting for the car to come through that flotilla of cars, get to the side of the road and service your bicycle, whatever the problem might be. Eventually, at sometimes, especially in the last 10 kilometers or so of a bike race, at these critical moments, sometimes getting the part or the bicycle from your teammate is absolutely essential to keeping your position in the overall standings.
Quick update there of the race situation. We have 4 leaders. The 4 riders have been away since the 5th kilometer. Halfway across the gap at 30 seconds at Laurens Tindam and Kevin Seeld-Reyes. And then 1 minute is the gap now back to the main field.
It was the Va Consolet car moments ago taking a little bit of a turnout, the opportunity to get out of the way of the charging peloton. That would leave one to believe that the breakaway is about to be caught. The Consolet car obviously been following that man Verkelen throughout today's proceedings.
Well, this is the leading group of 4. I suppose, Bob, it's a bit of a sign of the times when I'm commentating on David Lelay, because, in fact, I used to race with his father, Gilbert Lelay, and Gilbert Lelay was a wearer of the polka dot jersey in the Tour de France King of the Mountain. So rather strange to see young David when I raced with his dad.
Well, the world marches on, and time waits for no man, especially Bradley Wiggins trying to defend a very slim margin in the overall standings, just 6 seconds ahead of the American Levi Leipheimer, 11 seconds ahead the young American TJ Van Garderen, and 20 seconds ahead of Alejandro Valverde, who's raced very aggressively throughout Pyrenees. Valverde, his Achilles heels have always been the time trial. He lost a lot of time to Wiggins in the opening stage, but since then has been chipping away at Bradley Wiggins' lead and now finds himself poised to, if not get the jersey, at least get some time back if he can get a good sprint to the finish line.
We're going to see a massive assault, and we're talking about Alejandro Valverde and his head-to-head battle with Bradley Wiggins, but let's not discount, of course, the riders from Omega Pharma Quickstep. They've got a 2-pronged attack because they've, of course, got Levi Leipheimer and Sylvain Chavanel, and the way Chavanel is riding to the front end of the pack today, Bob, I think he's got something in the back of his mind too.
Sylvain Chavanel been very successful in Pyrenees in his career. He's having a great season. He did an exceptional turn of work to help Tom Boonen win stage number 2. Quickstep, Omega Pharma on an absolute high so far this season. They've been the dominant team in the sport.
Just noticed Simon Gerrans, the Australian national champion, sitting at the back of the pack. He's involved in that nasty little crash yesterday. He'll have a sore body today as we return to the front end of the business end of the main field here this afternoon. Look how close everybody is together. They're all starting to get nervous now. They realise over the next 11 kilometres, probably 9 of those kilometres are uphill, and this could be an extremely decisive stage for everybody. Well, very soon we'll be getting ourselves up to the top of this penultimate climb of the day, the Côte de Chabris, and after that, it's all uphill to the aerodrome of Mende. Just a couple of kilometres to go to the top of this penultimate climb of the day, the Côte de Chabris. I know that four-man leading group, Bob, want to survive because Frederik Verkelen wants to get himself maximum points again, but you could almost leap out of the main field here and get across that gap.
50 seconds is the advantage of the 4 men in front. 2 men dangling in no man's land between the peloton and the breakaway. 6 miles to go in today's stage, but 2 very tough climbs still to be summited.
Yeah, but I think the final climb of the day, that's where the showdown really is going to happen, Bob. That final climb as they come into Mende and climb up to the summit around the airstrip, the Côte de la Croix-Neuve, is a climb of 3 kilometres in length, and the average gradient up at the top is 11%. That's a real kicker, isn't it?
11% is a very steep gradient. We will see a shake-up for certain in the overall standings, a brutal climb to the finish line of today's stage.
Just looking at Frederik Verkelen, he's amassed himself 25 points, with the one from yesterday, 26 points total now overall. And in fact, Luis Angel Mate, the overnight leader, is still holding on to second place with 20 points. 10 kilometres to go to the finish now, Bob. It really is starting to hot up, and I'm waiting to see what is going to happen to this main field when they hit the climb in Mende.
I have a good idea of what is going to happen. You see that huge group there down at the bottom of your screen? That will be trickles of 1, 2, and 3 riders, part of, obviously, from the men sprinting for the stage win at the front.
That second group of riders on the road there, Bob, at 15 seconds, they've all, well, here they are. This is Laurens ten Dam on the left-hand side in the orange jersey, Kevin Seeldreers. This is a rather sad situation, I think, because these guys are just about to make the contact with the leading group of 4. Then I think they're all going to get gobbled up by the peloton.
Well, we'll see what happens to Frederik Verkelen when he sees ten Dam and Seeldreers coming back up to the front group. They might go streaming past the riders. Once you've been in the breakaway throughout a hard stage like this, you're absolutely exhausted. ten Dam, Seeldreers sitting comfortably in the pack until the second to last Category 1 climb out on the stage. And generally speaking, they have much fresher legs when they catch the front of the bike race.
Well, ten Dam, a rather older rider, 31 years of age, a very experienced professional bike rider, 5th overall last year in the Santos Tour Down Under, and he's been given himself a free chance here this afternoon, I think, because of the fact that Team Rabobank have not had any success at all so far in this event. That's where we are out on the course, the Côte de Chabris, right down towards the very end, but look at that little kicker just after it, because that is the final climb of the day, and that is the 3 kilometre, really difficult climb that everybody, I think, is starting to get a little bit of fear and trepidation about.
Well, not only a grisly stage on today's day of racing, also a very tough stage race so far, a time trial, and 3 open road stages that have been very tough already.
Well, if anybody was announcing that they wanted to win the stage into Mende, I would have to say it's Alejandro Valverde there in the green jersey with the matching green helmet, because he's had his team at the front end of this bike race for the last 40 or 50 miles. Team Movistar in the dark blue jerseys there. They're riding this race, Bob, as if they're actually leading the event, not actually the challengers.
Well, what's been amazing to me is the transformation of Team Movistar. 2011, without that man in green, Alejandro Valverde, we hardly ever saw Movistar at the front of any bike race. But now that he's back amongst them and riding well, they're able to stay on the front of these very prestigious bike races day in and day out, and that's what's required if you want to win.
Well, there's some damage happening at the back end of the main field here on this very nasty little climb, the Côte de Chabris. Once we go over the summit, there's just 8 kilometres or 5 miles left to go to the finish. I think probably, Bob, that's why 1 or 2 of these riders are sitting up. They realise they're not going to get eliminated this afternoon, and not necessarily a great place for Ivan Basso to be again.
It continues to go poorly for Ivan Basso in Paris-Nice. If you have desires to win a prestigious stage race like he said he has done, the Giro d'Italia this year, it's already March. It's not that long until the Giro d'Italia that starts in May. You have to be riding a little bit better than this. You can't stay at the back. Also, you can't crash day in and day out. That is going to certainly affect your fitness.
A change of jerseys at the front now. It's Team Katusha coming forward in the red and white jerseys. The Russian squad, the last time that the Tour de France came to Mende, it was their man Rodriguez who got himself the victory on that occasion. He's not in Paris-Nice. They're probably thinking about their man Simon Spilak. He's in 9th place overall and quite a handy climber.
Solid climber. Simon Spilak actually awarded the Tour of Romandy with the disqualification of the man in the green jersey on today's stage, Alejandro Valverde. Simon Spilak looking to move up in the overall standings. He starts the day in 9th, looking for a little bit higher placing.
Ooh, not very good for this man, arrière du peloton, at 1 kilometer to go to the summit. The leader of the polka dot jersey competition, Luis Angel Mate, is going backwards.
Mate was able to get the King of the Mountain jersey because of a day-long breakaway on yesterday's stage. He can be excused for being a little bit exhausted today.
Yeah, I think that was Hasta Mañana there, Bob. I think he'll be back with a vengeance, looking to try and consolidate the lead again if he can, because it's in the breakaways that this King of the Mountains competition seems to be decided. Now, look at the distance there between the 6-man leading group and the peloton. They may well just come back here, Bob, before the top of the climb.
Well, that would be a little bit of a disappointment for the man on the front, Vukelen. He's looking just a couple of 100 more meters to hold on to this front group and get the King of the Mountain points. The peloton might have other ideas, though.
I'll tell you what, Bob, he's actually really digging in deep here. He's looked over his shoulder. He's trying to keep the pressure on. He's trying to make sure that he can survive and get himself a few more points. If he's going to try and consolidate his lead in that King of the Mountains competition, it's take up the sprinting now.
Shifting the gears there, getting out of the saddle, a quick little sprint here. Sildreyers came around on his shoulder, but Vukelen now still a little bit of energy left, trying to get maximum points on this Category 2 climb to consolidate his lead in the King of the Mountain competition.
Oh, I can almost feel the burn in those legs of his now as he gets out of the saddle. He's popped everybody off his back wheel. He realizes this could be a very important moment for him. He's saying, please, where's the line? Come on, mate.
The line cannot come quickly enough for Vukelen. His teammate Thomas de Gent had that King of the Mountain jersey. If he gets this sprint, he will have had enough points to keep it at the end of the day, and it will change from Mate over to Vukelen.
Well, you know, Bob, I think he's just about going to make it. You can see the Japanese rider chasing him down there. That's Arashiro, and he's in 2nd position on the road. But look at the way this race is now coming all back together. And on the left-hand side there, old David Lelay, I think his legs have just said no.
David Lelay going back into the field. Also Kevin Sildreyers. So he got to the front. Now it looks like he's about to get dropped, going back like a stone through the chasing peloton.
Yeah, you really want to encourage this guy now, don't you, Frederic Vukelen? He's taken maximum points over the first 4 climbs of the day. He knows that if he can just hang on a little bit more here this afternoon at the summit of the Côte de Chabris, maximum points in his back pocket. There it is. Oh, I didn't think he was ever going to get to the top.
Finally for Frederic Vukelen, he's got maximum points and will go out the leader of the King of the Mountain jersey on today's competition.
Well, that's 5 climbs so far this afternoon. There's 1 more to come, and that 1 more is going to be a brute of a climb as we climb up to the airstrip above the city of Mende, and that's coming up next. Well, as we look here at Frederic Vukelen, the lone leader, 3.5 kilometers to go to the finishing line, and 3 of those kilometers, Bob, 1.8 miles, are uphill.
500 meters of flat before the final 3 miles of today's stage. All of it straight uphill, very steep gradients, and the peloton charging hard through the streets of Mende, just about on the back wheel of Frederic Vukelen.
Right, you can see everybody now trying to scramble. This is almost a charge to the bottom of the climb. It's a very nasty little approach. All of a sudden, you're riding through the big streets, and then the road narrows down.
And what now is critical is the battle for position. Watch for the teammates to help Bradley Wiggins, to help Levi Leipheimer, and to help, of course, Alejandro Valverde get right in the front of the peloton, right in perfect position to start the climb. That way, you don't have to expend energy to improve your position. You're right there where you need to be at the start of the climb, not halfway up.
It's also very dangerous, isn't it, Bob? Because you've got a lot of teammates who do the pacemaking to get their leaders into the first 10 or 15 positions for the start of the climb. Then they sit up and go backwards. It causes a lot of chaos.
Oh, absolutely. When riders take their teammate to the front, they do a huge turn of work, a big effort to get them in position. Then, of course, if you're that man, it's very tough to maintain the same tempo as the rest of the peloton.
Nice view there of the cathedral just over to the left-hand side. There's a sprint point there where we hardly saw that, but a few more dollars into the back pocket of Frederick Veukelin. 3 kilometers to go, and we're now starting the climb up to the aerodrome in Mende. And I'm going to tell you that back in 1966, Bob, this was in fact the site where they filmed one of the most famous French films of all times, The Grand Vadrouille. It was with André Bourvil and Louis de Funès, and it was the most successful French film until 2008, when it was overtaken by Bienvenue chez les Ch'tis. I bet you didn't know that, did you?
I most certainly did not know that. What about Amélie? How does that? Where does
that ranks way down.
Way
in
down.
fact, the second most important film in France is The Titanic, and we're about to see something sinking here.
It's one thing to start the climb at the front, another to finish it. Veukelin doing a great job to get King of the Mountain points throughout today's racing. Found the early breakaway. He won't get any more King of the Mountain points, but that is a great rider. Great ride from the Vacances Soleil man.
Well, slipping backwards there, David Moncoutier, number 57. That's a bit of a surprise because this could be the sort of finish that he would have enjoyed here this afternoon. Moving forward, not very happy wearing number 13, Markel Irizar. Not a lot of riders don't like to wear that number at all, especially a certain Fabien Cancellara, who seemed to have it every year in a row for the Tour de France.
And he puts it upside down in order to, a little bit of superstition, but to reverse the trend of bad luck that number generally connotates in Western culture.
Right, moving up into about fourth position there, the pale blue jersey, Levi Leipheimer. It's Team Sky doing the pacemaking. In fact, I would say Bradley Wiggins in the yellow jersey there, Bob, just maybe a little bit too far back.
Perhaps a bit far back. Richie Porte, his teammate on the front, doing a great turn of work. Bradley Wiggins must still be feeling fairly strong.
Well, that's a bit of a surprise here because that is Jani Brakovic slipping backwards there for Team Star, the leader, the Slovenian leader of that squad. He's obviously not in the form that he had a couple of years ago.
One of our pre-race favorites, Jani Brakovic, formerly a rider on the Radio Shack squad, moved over in the off-season to Astana, and so far this year has not had the best of success.
Well, this is Richie Porte doing the pacemaking. He's not even asking any questions at all of anybody. He just wants to keep the pace nice and high. Now, the reason for doing that, as we go out of the city of Mende, there, you can just see the town sign over on the right-hand side. The reason he's doing that, Bob, is to try and nullify any surprise attacks.
Oh, a huge turn of work there by Richie Porte on the front of the bike race. Great to see Levi Leipheimer, the American, in third position on third wheel. So Levi having a good start of this final climb.
Well, arrière du peloton, and there is the leader of Team Cofidis. That's Reim Teremai. He's the Estonian rider on that squad. Another rider not showing good form in the early part of this 2012 season.
Fourth in last year's Paris-Nice, not enjoying the same fitness this year.
Right, Movistar, the dark blue jerseys have had enough of the pace-making by Richie Porte. I'm just having to... Oh, there you can see over on the left-hand side, Bradley Wiggins moving further forward. Van Garderen is in that white jersey there. He keeps catching us out with that white jersey. He's in third place overall at the start of the day, but he's got the red helmet on from Team BMC.
Quick little acceleration there by Bradley Wiggins to get onto the team, to the wheel of his teammate, Richie Porte. Richie Porte continuing to dominate the proceedings so far in this climb.
Well, Tony Martin slips back. He's obviously done his work for the day. He came into this race as the defending champion. He's had to turn the books around now because this team, Omega Pharma Quickstep, have two very good leaders. Sylvain Chavanel, who'll be looking to do something this afternoon, and, of course, Levi Leipheimer.
The man in pink and blue there, Diego Ulisi, one of the up-and-coming stars of Italian cycling, also struggling on this final climb.
Right now, Bradley Wiggins sitting very comfortably there. Behind him, Levi Leipheimer. Behind him, TJ Van Garderen. The pink jersey and the fluorescent bike is Damiano Cunego. Bob, I have a feeling as we get to the steep part of this climb now, Alejandro Valverde may not have the legs that he thought at the start of the day.
Absolutely beautiful shot there of the switchbacks. And look at the steepness of this climb, testing the legs of everybody in the peloton, and a mad dash for the finish at the front of the group. Still pretty compact. Richie Porte dominating the proceedings, dancing on the pedals in support of his team leader, Bradley Wiggins.
Well, Richie Porte, one of the big transfers of the winter season. Now you can see the main field is certainly getting split up, and this is becoming a very serious war of attrition. Elimination by the rear of the peloton this afternoon.
And, oh, look at the pain in the legs of Christophe Lemavel. That's 151, the Garmin leader on GC. He had a tough crash on stage number 2, and he's really struggling today.
He certainly is, but he's not the only one struggling because there's a lot of riders riders being eliminated from this peloton, but the big names are keeping a very close watch on each other at the front of the pack. There you can see Bradley Wiggins is using his teammates, slipping a little bit further back. You can notice Alejandro Valverde in the green jersey is just on the back of this group. Also moving up to the front, you can see on the left-hand side there, popping in and out every now and again. It's the first time we've really seen TJ Van Garderen. He's ridden, I would say, a very clever race. That's him in the white jersey, best young rider, third overall at the start of the day.
Oh, that's Andreas Kloden in a world of hurt, struggling to maintain the tempo. He was the undisputed leader of Radio Shack at the start of Paris-Nice. That is not working out for the squad.
It certainly isn't, but look at the people, all the men now queuing up for victory here this afternoon, but still Team Sky are riding a very good tactical event. Just on the back of that group, I just spotted. Now, this is a surprise. Now, this I did not expect to see. Sylvain Chavanel, the champion of France, he's been riding consistently at the front end of the main field, but Bob, in the early part of the season, we're only in the month of March, this is a really violent effort.
Very surprising to see Sylvain Chavanel in trouble. He did complain about a touch of bronchitis in the opening stages, seemed to come better, but now he's really struggling, feeling the effects of that. He's not 100%, and unless you're 100% in any international bike race, you cannot win.
Well, Igor Anton, the leader of Euskaltel-Euskadi, was the rider in the orange jersey, also slipping backwards. Now you can start TJ Van Garderen there, Bob, on the right-hand side in that white jersey. He looks fairly comfortable.
Absolutely brilliant riding by the two Americans still in the front group. Levi Leipheimer, third wheel, and TJ Van Garderen from the BMC squad.
And number 91, Luis Leon Sanchez. He's slipping away from the front end of this bike race too. Jean-Christophe Perrault. That's a surprise. Number 71, because he started the day fairly high up in the overall standings. He could find himself slipping right out of this race this afternoon. And look at Luis Leon Sanchez. You get an idea by the way these riders, by their riding style, Bob, just how steep this climb is.
Very steep climb. Luis Leon Sanchez in trouble. Rabobank continuing to falter in Paris-Nice.
Well, also up there, Damiano Cunego. Just spotted, and Alejandro Valverde is there, but this is a great job of work. 1 kilometre left to go to the finish. The damage is done, and still nobody's been able to break the stranglehold of Team Sky Pro Cycling, because they've got this race under control.
And that was Frank Schleck being dropped. Maxime Montfort, the last man for Radio Shack in the front group.
Well, we've got a move here coming from FDJ, and this is Arnold Jonazon, one of the revelations for France last year in the Tour de France. He's not really a threat in the overall standings now, so I think they'll allow him a little bit of freedom. He started the day 52 seconds back. Thomas Voeckler is in this group as well, 121.
Voeckler, a former stage winner in Paris-Nice, not on great form, but hanging in the front group so far today.
Well, that group now down to about 12 riders strong. All of the heads of state of this year's Paris-Nice, and still two teammates alongside Bradley Wiggins. I think he's in good form, and he's happy to have those men along with him.
This is Voeckler struggling to maintain the tempo. Maxime Montfort also, the Radio Shack rider, but they are choppy pedaling at the back of this group. That's not the ideal place to be.
Oh, Jonazon gets out of the saddle once again, trying to keep that gear ticking over. This is a brute of a climb here. They're waiting to see when the race starts to open up when we come to the summit. And again, they will be buffeted by the winds. You know, I'm always amazed at the way Thomas Voeckler rides. He looks as if he's about to crack, but then he fights his way in. He's fighting with the bike, fighting with the body, and he's back in contact again.
Richie Port's done his work. He's pulled off. Bradley Wiggins, exceptional ride by the Sky team. They still have another man in the front. It wouldn't surprise me if there's Rigoberto.
Ooh, Wiggins is going. Wiggins is moving there, Bob. Sorry to interrupt, but you see that acceleration right on his wheel there is Levi Leipheimer. The best way to defend is to attack, and that's exactly what this man has done. I don't think anybody would have expected that.
And TJ Van Garderen instantaneously in trouble by that acceleration from Bradley Wiggins.
Well, Wiggins over on the left-hand side. Another attack now. Vacansoleil, this is Louis Wiestra. Now, they better not let him go too far off the front, Bob, because he starts the day in 6th place, 18 seconds off the lead of Wiggins.
Big attack by Louis Wiestra right after Wiggins, but look at TJ Van Garderen. He's been gapped now, struggling at the back of the front group.
He's on the limit, still in contact there. We've got these riders all trying to sit on the wheel now of Bradley Wiggins, but what a surprise move. Just as well now that Louis Wiestra looks over his shoulders. This is a great ride for Vacansoleil here at Paris-Nice.
Vacansoleil Soleil, already successful. Gustav Larsson won stage number 1. Louis Wiestra, though, he is accelerating away from the leaders. He starts the day in 6th, just a few seconds behind Bradley Wiggins. They're going to have to do something special to pull Wiestra back into the fold, and they have less than 1 kilometer to do it.
Well, there are not many riders left in that group. I just caught a quick sign of the green jersey, Alejandro Valverde, still biding his time, Bob, waiting for the moment to pounce. Look at him there in 3rd position, but they're allowing Bradley Wiggins to do all of the pacemaking as Louis Wiestra looks over his shoulder now. He looks to me, Bob, at 200 meters to go, and we're going to get a bit of a surprise winner here this afternoon.
Boom, boom, the lights are going out. He's hit the flat part of the climb. All he has to do is streak to the finish line for what would be a great stage win.
Well, this is put Wiggins on the back foot because there's a 10-second time bonus on the finishing line for Louis Wiestra. If he can get that and 8 seconds, we could have a change in the overall standings here this afternoon, and Wiggins knows that. He knows he's got to keep going on his wheel. This is going to be a great win for Louis Wiestra. This is a name we would not have talked about at the start of today. Yes, we know Vacances Soleil, the Holiday in the Sun team, have had a holiday on the race to the sun. Coming across the line now, the acceleration for 2nd place, it's going to go to Valverde. That'll give him a time bonus. 3rd for Wiggins, 4th for Leipheimer, and Spilak up there in 6th place. Damiano Cunego now is the man to come to the line, but the time gaps now are going to start to open. The man we're looking for, Bob, was the man who started the day in 3rd place overall, TJ Van Garderen, and the clock continues to mount.
The clock is ticking for TJ, and there he is. He's just come around the last corner. He's the man in the white jersey at the just behind Vogler and Montfort. There's TJ Van Garderen, finally finishing about 30 seconds behind the stage winner, Louis Wiestra.
Well, we're going to have a quick look at the clock there, because as we see Bradley Wiggins, that was a very quick warm down there, Bob, that he's taken this afternoon. He was put into the red zone on that one. He was on the back foot. He had to defend. He was just pipped to the line by Alejandro Valverde. Valverde will move up a little bit more this afternoon. He'll start to tickle the top 5 position, I think, by the end of tonight.
Well, we talked about Montfort, we talked about Valverde, we talked about Van Garderen, Leipheimer, and Wiggins, but it was Louis Wiestra from the Vacances Soleil team stealing all the thunder on today's stage. We'll see how that factors in with all of the time and all of the time bonuses and the time gaps between himself and Bradley Wiggins. Wiggins may have just barely kept that yellow jersey.
Well, Wiestra's first win of this year's season. He won 2 races last year, one in the Loire Atlantique, and he also won the prologue of the Tour of Belgium. But the way that he won that, Bob, that was very dominant indeed. He bided his time. He went over the attack of Bradley Wiggins, and then all of a sudden they weren't going to see him again. But this victory salute, Bob, it might well just cost him a chance of taking the overall lead.
Well, he's been a great time trialist in his career, and now you can add great climber. That was a beautiful stage win.
Well, let's look at the time gaps then. Louis Wiestra 6 seconds ahead of Valverde and Bradley Wiggins. Levi Leipheimer 4th and Simon Spilak in 5th, all given the same time as Alejandro Valverde. Further down, Jonasson lost himself 16 seconds. Thomas Vogler lost himself 30 seconds in 10th place, but he was in that group with TJ Van Garderen. Well, those are the stage results here this afternoon. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll give you the overall standings and a couple of interviews. So when we go back to the aerodrome above the city of Mende, the stage winner is Louis Wiestra, 29 years of age, from the Netherlands.
Had some quality wins in his career, but this has to be considered his very best win ever here in Paris-Nice. The way he did that, also a dominant ride on the final climb to the airport in Mende.
Yeah, certainly a very well-timed sprint there as he came up to the finishing line. And I have to say, this team, Vacances Soleil, they certainly do deserve to get selected for some of these top races around the world. So today's Michelob Ultra ride of the day, of course, Bob, has to go to Louis Wiestra.
It can be none other than Louis Wiestra. This is Wiggins putting in a big attack in the yellow jersey. Wiestra says, I'll take your attack, and I'll see you about 10 seconds at the finish line. Good night, Irene. Louis Wiestra for the win.
That's why he gets the Michelob Ultra ride of the day. And if we go around the back of the podium position here, we've got a chance to hear what he has to say about his win today.
It's unbelievable. I work hard here for, and yeah, it is a big day in my life.
Yeah. Now, what can we expect from you on the weekend with the time trial in Ace? It can be for you too.
Yeah, no, I feel my super, and I hope now 2 days for a sprint, and then in the time trial we will see.
Thank you very much.
Very good point there, actually, Bob, because that man was 8th in the World Time Trial Championships last year. So watch out. We could be looking for the showdown on the Col d'Ez. This, of course, is the man who leads the race still, Bradley Wiggins.
Bradley Wiggins puts on another yellow jersey, his 4th so far in Paris-Nice. He put in a big attack. He was able to match his rivals, but I don't think he had Louis Wiestra on his radar. I most certainly did not, but he does defend that. Great work by his team, and he finds himself another day in the overall lead of Paris-Nice.
Continues that march down. Let's have a look what his lead is like then. It's Bradley Wiggins leads by 6 seconds from Louis Wiestra. Levi Leipheimer in 3rd place at 10 seconds. Valverde sneaks right into the top 5 in 4th, looking for 18 seconds. But the gaps are starting to extend. 39 seconds, TJ Van Garderen down into 6th place. Sylvain Chavanel had an awful day, dropping to 9th, a minute and 16 seconds in arrears. And some of the other riders, 24th, Brent Bookwalter, 4:45 behind. Tony Martin, last year's defending champion, in 49th place, and 160th for Danny Pate. So let's go around the back of the podium position again and hear what Bradley Wiggins has to say.
It was bloody hard, honestly. It was just the cold air was just sapping all day, so it was just I was pleased when we were hitting the climbs because you could really warm up. And the boys once again today did a fantastic job all day, right to the end, even with Richie and Rigi. And priority then was just a time trial to the summit, which I did, and so it's been a good day.
I remember 3 days ago you were saying you weren't expecting to keep the jersey on your shoulders. It's still there? It's solidly there?
It's, you know, we've defended 6 seconds now for the last couple of days, so it's not been easy, but yeah, I mean, this was the stage everyone was talking about, and the next 2 days, I wouldn't say a formality, but they're not as hard as today, and it should be a bit warmer, and obviously all going to come down to Sunday, which we expected, and I think that's it.
That's it. Well, it will be a big showdown on the slopes of the Col d'Ez, I have to say, Bob. We're going to have to go back to 1967 to see the last British winner of Paris-Nice, and that, of course, was Tom Simpson. One man who had a very difficult day today, though, but still remains in the lead in the Best Young Rider competition, TJ Van Garderen.
23-year-old American TJ Van Garderen still leading the Young Riders competition. His intentions before Paris-Nice were, however, to get the yellow jersey as race winner of Paris-Nice. I'm not sure if that's going to be possible on this year's edition.
Well, hopefully he can have an easier day tomorrow, because the weekend is going to be a very, very difficult weekend of cycling. Tomorrow, the Epic Cycle Series presented by Michelob Ultra continues with stage 6 of Paris-Nice. The early ascents will give the climbers an opportunity to strike from the get-go. Tomorrow at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the NBC Sports Network. And don't miss the launch of Major League Soccer Sunday at 3 p.m. Eastern. It's FC Dallas taking on the New York Red Bulls. For a full cycling schedule, log on to our website at nbcsports.com. Congratulations to the winners. For Bob Roll, I'm Paul Sherwin saying goodbye.